You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com.
All right. Yeah. Welcome to the Mike Riley Now podcast here on the Young Angels of America Network. I am your host, Mr. Mike Riley. Of course, I am joined, welcome back, ladies, by the incredible co-host, Miss Charlie Sandy and my girl Cam Robson. Welcome back, ladies. Welcome back to the show.
Woo! Glad to be back.
Yes. Never, ever leave again.
3 weeks.
3 weeks, I know. Y'all, Cam is leaving us in about 3 weeks. She's going to Italy to go pursue her career. She has a big modeling thing going on. So we want to definitely congratulate Cam for that.
Blush.
I'm telling you, man, you are big time. We are not in the same league. You are big time. Well, today is Thursday, May 18th of the 2017s. We have made it this far, and we're all still alive, and we're all still here. Thank the good Lord. It has been a roller coaster of stuff. I say this every week, but every week it's just another basket of crap that happens in between this time and last time. We were off last week. Last week we did have to take a break because, well, first of all, Brooke Doherty, who's also in the house, the executive director of Young Angels Network, she was not here, and I had tickets to the LA Phil down at the Walt Disney Concert Hall, and I wanted to go. So
Priorities.
But we're all here. We're all back now, and it's so good to be back. Of course, I want to thank everybody who's checking us out on Facebook Live, everybody who is listening via iTunes, via Stitcher, via Spreaker. If you're listening to us live, God bless you. To everybody that's checking us out on YouTube and all the other channels that you listen to us on, thank you so much. Make sure you log on to MikeRileyNow.com. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that cool stuff. Leave comments. Do all that stuff. I'm trying to step my Instagram game up, everybody, so just be patient with me on that. All right? So first of all, the first thing I want to do is I want to shout out Nick Melvoin. He was our special guest on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we had an election here in Los Angeles last Tuesday, and Nick Melvoin, he won. He won his election for the school board in District 4 here in Los Angeles, so we want to say congratulations to Nick. Thanks for being on the show and all that whole cool stuff. It's kind of funny because his opponent, Steve Zimmer, did y'all get these little things in the mail? They're passing all over the West Side. His opponent, Steve Zimmer, he was like, he's the incumbent, right? And he was like, he was the person that we all thought might actually have a shot at winning based on the fact that he was getting so much support from a lot of bigger Democrats. Like, he was endorsed by the mayor, he was endorsed by Maxine Waters, he was endorsed by Bernie Sanders, and he still lost. So I don't know. That goes to show you that maybe the establishment maybe it isn't as powerful as people think it is. So that is something to kind of look into. But we want to definitely say shout out to Nick Melvoin and congratulations on your victory. Another thing that happened today, Roger Ailes died today. Now, Roger Ailes, for those of you who don't know, he's the guy who started Fox News. He's like the head honcho. He was the one that kind of put the whole thing together with Rupert Murdoch, and he died today. I say this every week, but we're gonna do our Fox News show here sooner or later. It's just gonna take a lot for me to put it together. Like, I want to produce an entire show about it. Get guests on, have clips, do that whole thing. And I'll talk more about Roger Ailes. But his death, it was really interesting because when he died today, I went on Twitter just to kind of look at it and see what people were saying. And a lot of people on the left were kind of like, well, screw him. It's kind of hardcore. Like, I'm not one to celebrate the death of anybody. When people die, that's it. But at the same time, it's kind of like when Anthony Scalia died. Like, a lot of people were like, sorry to see him go, but Or like there was this Supreme Court justice back in the 1850s. His name was Roger. I want to say it was Roger
Rogers?
Roger Taney. Roger Rogers. It was Roger Rabbit. No, his name was Roger Taney. And Roger Taney was a Supreme Court justice who decided the Dred Scott decision. And he was the one that said that, no white person has to respect a black man because they're not people or something along those lines.
It was that, like, if a slave moves to a free state with their owner, they don't automatically become free.
Right,
They're
exactly.
Still slaves.
Right. And his thing was no black man has rights that a white man is bound to respect. That's pretty much property. Yeah, they're still property. That was pretty much his whole thing. So when he died, a lot of people kind of didn't care. They were just like, oh, well, a lot of people were kind of celebrating his death, actually, after he died because of his decision. I'm not saying that Roger Ailes was that bad at all, but I just thought it was just a pretty interesting
Parallel.
very interesting parallel. Another thing that happened since the last time we talked was the French election. Marine Le Pen lost. Not only did she lose, she got her ass kicked. She lost by a lot. It wasn't like a small thing. So maybe we were wrong about this right-wing takeover of the world. People kind of rejected it.
They heard us.
Yeah, they heard us. They heard our podcast. Yeah, blowing up.
It was specifically
blowing
our
up.
podcast.
We're strong in France.
Yeah.
Doing our thing. Actually, we're actually doing our thing around the world. We got listeners in China. We got listeners in Italy.
Shout out to all our
listeners in
international
Switzerland.
listeners.
That's what I'm talking about. And you know what? Cam's about to bring us to Italy. She's going to spread the word. And so thank you for that. But I do want to kind of talk about the French election a little bit. You know what I think it is? One of the things that kind of helped out a little bit. Okay, check this out, right? France has their elections on a Sunday when nobody has to go to work. Right? They said 75.3% of France's population voted in that election. 75%. They said that's the lowest turnout they had since 1969. Could you imagine if 75% of the United States voted in anything?
That would be crazy.
Besides American Idol contest.
We get shit done.
Right? That is just something else. 75% of their citizens. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later, but that's their lowest turnout since 1969. That's crazy for 75%. But yeah.
Also the fact that it was that was their lowest turnout.
Yeah, that's just a trip. That's their lowest. My God. But
we'd retire if we had that. We were our job is done. We no longer need to inform you.
What's this whole podcast about? So I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah, Marine Le Pen lost, and I think the world is kind of rejecting that whole idea. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. But anyway, let's get to the main event tonight. Now, I really want to talk about what's been going on. Okay, so all right.
We're getting into this.
Yeah, we got to get into the meat and potatoes a little bit. I had to prop myself up for those who can't see me. But so this past week, well, okay, let me back this up a little bit. Okay, now when it comes to Donald Trump and the whole Russia thing, right? This Russia thing to me. Now I'm all for if something happened where we all know the Russians got into our election. We all know they colluded. We all know they tried to sway it, right? The question everybody's asking is, did Donald Trump or anybody in his administration have anything to do with it? That's pretty much what we're trying to get down to, right? So in the midst of that, there's all these investigations happening, all of these, special, what's the word I'm looking for here? Congressional committees and things like that. They're all coming out and they're all trying to figure this stuff out. And it kind of seems like it's an attack just kind of happening from the left kind of just straight to the right. But, and for me personally, I get a little, I try not to focus on it. I try my best not to just sit here and do the whole, Donald Trump's colluding with the Russians and we need to be paying attention to the Russian thing and everything else like that. Y'all don't know how bad my ADD is. It's really bad. So anyway, sorry. Cam is over here making faces in the side of the thing and I can't focus. But anyway,
we're only human.
At least they're beautiful faces.
They are indeed. Yes, a face of an Italian model coming up pretty soon. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so
by the young angels of America,
right? And every single time I turn on the news, like MSNBC or CNN or something like that, they're on this Russian thing. Now, what's going on between Donald Trump and the Russians can pretty much be summed up in about 5 minutes, right? And I kind of want to get over the whole Russian thing, but every single time I turn around, it's almost like the hole gets dug a little bit deeper. First, there's the Michael Flynn thing. Michael Flynn gets caught, colluding with the Russians, and he has to resign. And then there's Jeff Sessions. He has to recuse himself. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Donald Trump comes along and fires James Comey. James Comey was the director of the FBI, and he was the one that was going to be launching the investigation into finding out if Donald Trump had been colluding with the Russians or not. And then just out of the clear blue, Donald Trump fires him. Now, Donald Trump said he fired him because he was mishandling the Hillary Clinton thing.
Which confuses me a lot because he could have done this way earlier.
Back
Not
in
only
January.
that, but he was supporting him with flying colours when
Yeah,
he first
yeah.
did it. He was like, he's being very brave doing
And
this.
like there was like I was watching the news and how Donald Trump had asked him to like stand by him,
Right.
and make like a promise not to like do anything that would damage his reputation and stuff, and then he was in the Oval Office and they were hugging each other. Like, it was really weird.
They had a
Yeah,
bromance.
they had a kind of a
going on.
bromance type of
Yeah.
thing going on, and then all of a sudden,
Not as amazing as Biden and Obama.
Never.
Obviously.
No, there's no such
There's
thing as
no
a bromance.
substitute for our homies.
but at the same time, you know, he fired him, and then the story gets kind of messed up because Donald Trump says he fired him because of the Hillary Clinton thing, and then Mike Pence comes out and says he fires him because he was incompetent, and then you had Sean Spicer come out and said he was going to fire him anyway,
Yeah,
and
but
so there's
Sean
all
Spicer's just
he's
Sean Spicer just
A
needs to
mess.
stay in the bushes that he hides in.
Melissa McCarthy. She
Oh my god,
she
Honestly-
deserves
queen.
a
She's queen.
honestly, I feel like if Melissa McCarthy just took over Sean Spicer's position, no one would notice. 'Cause
No,
she's
totally
just
not.
so good at it.
People be wondering why the country's suddenly improving.
right.
Yeah.
She's. I think it's funny when she like tries to ram people with the podium.
I
It's
love
hilarious.
it.
It's hilarious. But
Don't give him ideas.
right. But so now why is this a big deal? Now of course people on the right are kind of asserting that this is nothing more than a political witch hunt. Kind of like this kind of reminds me of what the right was doing to the left during the Obama days, right? They were calling for his impeachment. By the way, a sitting congressman or a senator by the name of Al Green, not the one who sings "Let's Stay Together," but another congressman named Al Green, he went on the floor, I think it was yesterday, and called for Donald Trump's actual impeachment. And he said that this has to do with obstruction of justice. The reason why they're talking about obstruction of justice is because Donald Trump fires the person, or the director of the FBI who's leading this investigation into finding out what's going on with you, right? And he says it's not for political reasons. He says it's because you're incompetent. But at the same time, James Comey comes out and says, well, Donald Trump, I have a memo where Donald Trump says, could you not investigate this Russia thing? Right?
Nixon.
Right. That's Nixonian for that's what Richard Nixon did.
Except it was the opposite, and he fired the not the.
It was the deputy attorney general
there
who
we
he
go.
fired. Yeah, who was
So it was the
investigating.
opposite. So the attorney general now is supporting Donald Trump, and he fired.
Right, but the
FBI.
attorney general Jeff Sessions recused himself for this because he could be complicit.
Yeah.
He can be
Because
somebody.
he had relations with Russia himself.
He has relations with Russia
Despite saying
himself.
that he didn't.
Exactly,
And that's
exactly.
a whole nother.
That's a whole other
A
story
whole
right
nother
there.
story.
Which I'm sure everyone has listened to. If not, then I'm kind of worried about you.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame. And then to make things worse, because Donald Trump and his everlasting stupidity comes out and sends out a tweet that says, if James Comey has any, he better not release any recordings or anything like
You
that.
better hope we don't have any tapes.
Right, kind of threatening him. a little
Tapes,
bit.
of course, in quotations, because
Right.
Donald Trump doesn't understand quotations.
So that could be considered obstruction of justice. Now, because that happened, the attorney the deputy attorney general had to appoint a special counsel in order to investigate this, and they appointed this former FBI director. His name is Robert Mueller, to investigate the whole Donald Trump thing. And then Donald Trump goes on Twitter again and rants. Now, I'm saying all this to say, right, what these political kind of, not necessarily, I wouldn't call them political witch hunts, because at the end of the day, if something happened between Donald Trump and the Russians and all them, then we need to investigate it and we need to find out what's going on.
And also, a witch hunt is based on something completely make-believe. This is real shit.
Yeah, this is some real shit. Yeah. But then, like I said, it kind of reminds me of what was going on during the Obama days. It's like the right was kind of doing the same thing. They were going out calling for Barack Obama's impeachment. Remember, they had this whole thing about Hillary Clinton.
Oh my
and
It's their ship name.
yeah, Hillary.
Hillary Clinton.
That's like Brangelina, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like it moves
They're
together.
the new power couple.
Exactly. But
Watch out, Beyonce and Jay-Z.
BAZ, however it's called. But they had the whole Benghazi thing, and they were investigating her, over the emails and everything else like that. And then there was, these long, huge congressional sessions, hours and hours and hours, and days, and a bunch of taxpayer money trying to investigate something when there was probably no smoking gun there in the first place. And I'm kind of curious if that's what's going on now, or if there's a real crime that's being committed. All right, y'all, we'll be right back. It's the Mike Riley Now podcast.
You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com.
GQ pose, yes. And welcome back to the Mike Riley Now podcast here on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. As you just heard in the drop right there, thank everybody for joining us. All right, so yeah, a little bit of a trip on the whole thing. We'll try to discuss more about the whole Donald Trump and Russia thing as the story develops and what's been going on with James Comey and all that. Pretty bad timing on Donald Trump's part. He says that there's nothing going on and it's just a witch hunt, and the right is accusing the left of just being a bunch of crybabies and we can't get over the election and that's the reason why we're doing this and blah, 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 yakety smackety, blah, blah. But hey, you know, we'll see what happens. We'll see what really unfolds as time kind of goes along. All right, y'all. So we'll talk about that more later as the story unfolds. So we're going to get into a little bit of news of the week. Our news of the week. I'm kind of missing that a little bit. Yeah, news. We should have some, some news music.
Here's the news.
Yeah, or something like Charlie, you're going to have to record that for me when you get a chance.
I hit a pitch there.
Yeah. Put some auto-tune on it. It'll be all right. So, my first story is single-payer success in New York as Medicare for All bill passes state assembly. This is according to commondreams.org. So California and New York are leading this crusade to be the states that have a single-payer health system. So the story goes on to read, as the momentum behind Medicare for All continues to grow nationwide, New York's state assembly on Tuesday was expected to pass a single-payer healthcare bill that puts the state light years ahead of the regressive GOP in Washington, D.C. This is a liberal outlook, by the way, so that's why they're clowning the GOP. But anyway, the New York Health Act would afford all state residents access to comprehensive inpatient and outpatient care, primary and preventive care, prescription drugs, behavioral health services, laboratory testing, and rehabilitative care, as well as dental, vision, and hearing coverage. There would be no premiums, no deductibles or copays. The plans would be funded through progressively raised taxes, including a surcharge that would put a split 80-20 between employers and employees. That is awesome. That is awesome. That is something else. New York may pass this. California is on the verge of passing it now. It's already passed our state assemblies and it's moving on to our state senates. So if it passes our state senates, it goes to the governor's desk, and if the governor signs it, it becomes law. So,
go team.
Yeah, we might have single payer here in the United States a lot sooner than we actually think, which might be a pretty cool thing. So yeah. Anyway,
utopia is possible.
Probably, maybe. The next story I have here: the jury acquits the Tulsa officer Betty Shelby in the shooting death of Terrence Crutcher. Now, for those of y'all who don't remember, last year there was this. I think I want to say it was in what state? It was in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? There was this brother who got pulled over on the side of the road because his truck broke down, right? And then this cop comes over and starts questioning him about his truck being broken down. And then this helicopter starts flying over him, and more police come. And the guy has his hands up, and he's walking towards his car. And then for some reason or another, he reaches down at his car handle on his car door, and the cops shoot him and kill him, right? And you can hear the helicopter above saying this guy looks like a bad dude and all this other stuff. And and it was he was unarmed, of course. They didn't find a weapon or anything like that on him. Now the cop that killed him was just acquitted. Her name was Betty Shelby. And a lot of people aren't really talking about this in the mainstream media, but I don't know. I kind of find this because we were talking a lot about this last week about the abuse of power in the police and a lot of the racist history in the police forces here in the United States. And this is one of these situations where, I really do think, in my own personal opinion, that this is kind of a story of perpetuation. Or is it? I mean, I really don't know. I mean, I'm curious to know what you guys think. I mean, unarmed black people getting killed by police in this country is starting to become so commonplace that it's not even news anymore. And at the same time, this cop was seen justified in killing this man because she said she feared for his life. Because after all, he did reach down towards his car door. So, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a noodle scratcher, but at the same time, man, it's pretty sad. It's a pretty sad situation. Anyway, what do y'all think? Y'all are giving me those looks over there. Yeah.
They're deep and meaningful.
I know, right? It's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So, all right. So earlier this week, there was in Washington D.C., outside of the Turkish ambassador's office, there was a lot of protesting going on. Apparently, Donald Trump has embraced the new president of Turkey, and I don't really know the guy's name, but the president of Turkey he's a pretty bad guy, right? You know, he wants to kind of destroy democracy, and Donald Trump is called him and congratulated him on his victory and all this other stuff. He's also really cool with Philip Duarte, who's the president of the Philippines, who I said before, he has a really hardcore policy on drugs, and he goes around murdering people, and he brags about it. So earlier this week, there was a huge brawl outside of the Turkish embassy where there were protesters outside protesting the Turkish embassy and the Turkish ambassador and Turkish president. So what happened was the Turkish ambassador sent out members of the Turkish government, or the guards, the security guards, and they went out there and they attacked the protesters. And it's like, wait a minute, what? You know, it's almost like people are protesting outside and you send government officials outside to attack them. That doesn't happen here in the United States. You have the right to protest. So that was kind of in a lot of mainstream media outlets also are not talking about that. And the only person who's really up in arms about it really is John McCain. He's really been the only one that's been coming out saying we need to call for the Turkish ambassador to leave, or we need to tell him to, we need to prosecute him or something, because you can't go around attacking people.
Well, you also can't do it because it was on American soil.
Exactly.
Once they left the Turkish embassy.
Right.
So it doesn't really make sense as to why we're not following any prosecution at all. Right.
Absolutely. I agree. And it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, this isn't Turkey. This isn't that type of system. And it doesn't matter what your politics are. Everybody has the right to protest. Everybody has the right to voice their opinion about something they don't agree with without fear of being, prosecuted, or without fear of being, hurt. Because
especially if they're not hurting anyone and causing any actual immediate damage at all.
Yeah, and there's not even, you can't even argue that it was trespass on property, because if it's an embassy, then you're welcome. It's the whole point of a bloody embassy. So you can't even argue, well, they're protesting. They were protesting.
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling they weren't even on.
No, but if they were, they can't
soil.
even make that claim.
Yeah.
So I mean, they have no excuse as to why guards came out.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said before, I don't know much about the president of Turkey, but apparently this guy is like. He's up there with the bad dictators, and like I said, Donald Trump seems to have this some sort of obsession with these kind of evil, not evil. I shouldn't call people evil like that, but kind of like these bad dudes.
Not particularly great.
Yeah, not particularly great people, and it's he kind of gets a lot of influence off of them. So
he probably would have sent Marine Le Pen flowers.
Oops. My bad. Yeah, probably. Oh yeah, he was definitely a big Le Pen supporter. Sorry, I'm scuffling through my papers up here. Y'all can probably hear it. On the
we need him to get a little bit more organized.
No, I need a secretary.
He needs to laminate his paper.
Yeah, exactly.
You are very welcome to donate to the MikeRileyGetOrganized.com.
That's what I'm talking about. Go to MikeRileyNow.com and just donate. That would be really cool. We can definitely get
help him get organized.
Help me get a secretary.
Help us.
Help us.
him.
Yeah. Thank you, Cam. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Bring back some of that money you're gonna make in Italy. All right.
Feeling the love right now. Thanks, Mike.
Feeling love. Okay, so the next story.
Not all about you.
Oh my gosh.
They're fighting on the air. So the next story is songbirds are being trolled by climate change. This is actually a big story. I was actually listening to something about this earlier on the radio about there is this a talk show host who was talking about, he lives in the DC area, and he was talking about how he noticed that certain migratory birds that are usually there during this time of the year aren't there, and these migratory patterns are starting to change, and a lot of that is being affected by climate change. I mean, you hear this a lot about the bees as well, that a lot of ecosystems are being disrupted due to climate change. And this story was one that was on Quartz Media. It says birds manage their incredible timing by sensing the seasonal shift in light, not temperature. So when the sun begins to set later and rise earlier, just enough to signal the impending spring, birds begin their migration. But insects time their hatching according to the unfurling of tree leaves, which is triggered by a shift towards warmer temperatures. So when spring comes earlier to the trees and bugs, the birds don't always know it. So basically, what it's saying is that during certain parts of the year, these bugs come out due to certain temperature changes, and the birds migrate at the same time. But now, because of climate change, it's kind of offsetting things. So when these birds are going out looking for these bugs to eat, and they're not there, it's starting to really disrupt the ecosystem. So that's just a little bit of climate news, because we always got to talk about climate news, because climate change is a real thing, and unfortunately,
just in case
unfortunately, people aren't doing much about it. All right, y'all, we'll be right back.
You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com.
All right, y'all. Yeah, and welcome back to the Mike Riley Now podcast here on the Young Angels of America Network. Thank you so much, everybody, for riding with me. Make sure you log on to MikeRileyNow.com. Tell all your friends about it. Please spread the word about the podcast if you haven't already. Remember, you can always share this if you're listening to it on any device, on iTunes, Spreaker, whatever. There's that little button there that you can use to kind of share it with people. Share it on your Twitter, share it on your Facebook, share it on your whatever, Snapchat, whatever you got going. Let people know about the show. And let us know what we can do to improve and give us some criticism or whatever. You can always call into the show, too, if you ever want to join the discussion. 310-910-9113. We're here every Thursday, 8:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So y'all call into the show, listen to the show, tell your friends about the show, and thank you for listening. God bless you for that. All right, let's jump into our third segment. Let's talk about economics a little bit here. So I do want to start off with talking about the net neutrality thing. We talked about this before. I would say it was a couple months ago we did a little show on net neutrality, and I was kind of educating people on it and telling them what it's all about. This last week on the John Oliver show, John Oliver did this huge segment on net neutrality. It was really, really cool, and he was talking about how they're going to try to bring it back into effect. And for those of you who missed that show, basically what net neutrality is it's pretty much tightening up the internet in a sense and making it more of a monopoly versus more of like a free thing. So, right now...
It's basically corporations taking over the internet.
Exactly. As opposed to it being like a utility.
Yeah.
Because...
It's, what is it? I don't know. I'll come back to you.
Right. I get what you're saying.
Right,
but
brain farts.
Yeah. But it's like, your internet comes into your house through pretty much one line. I would assume like your cable line. And
privatizing.
Yeah, and they're trying to privatize it. They're trying to make it so
that's
broadband carrying privatization. That's the word you're looking for. So basically, it's essentially saying these broadband carriers or these internet providers can charge a certain amount for specific content. So if you want to go on the political websites, you got to pay this much, or if you want to go on this, you got to pay that much. Almost like streaming services.
I mean, it's not just that. It's that the companies can pay the internet services to push their products onto you. So, like, you'll be surfing the internet, and one company will pay way more to the internet to kind of slow down the processing for, like, say, like, Bing pays AT&T. They're gonna slow down the internet for Google, so that more people will use Bing.
Right.
Or Yahoo would pay for more people to use Yahoo and stop using CNN or something. It's
right. And what is Bing? I'm gonna Google search that. Anyway,
exactly. That's why Bing needs this.
Exactly. And that's gonna be a big problem. Watch, and you know what it's gonna affect the most is the porn industry. They always say, the way porn goes, everything else goes. And if they start having to charge people more for that, people are going to be pissed. Or anyway, what are
someone
guys
has to
do?
say it.
That definitely got a little racy, a little quick.
Yeah, that escalated quickly. But anyway, the cool thing about what John Oliver did was he pretty much pointed a lot of the troubles with net neutrality out, especially from an economic standpoint. And the FCC has opened up their doors in order to let people comment on this. So, but you have to go through all these specific channels. You got to go through like 8 different websites. You got to fill out all this different crap. So John Oliver made a quick link to it called gofccyourself.com. And if you go to gofccyourself.com, you can go on there and tell the FCC what you think as far as net neutrality is concerned. And a lot of people did that, and it pretty much shut down the FCC website. And now the net neutrality thing is back up in question as of not passing through. Now the corporations are going to try their best to pass it through, so that way they can kind of control the internet, kind of like how it is in China and places like that, where you can only go on like 8 or 9 websites. But a lot of people are trying to stop that. So that's a good thing. And the problem is the only thing that can stop net neutrality from going all the way through now at this point is Congress. So hopefully Congress will wise up and not let the corporations have their way. But as you all know, we have a Republican-led Congress, and I don't care what anybody says, the Republican Party is the party of the corporations. It's in favor of the corporations. So yeah, so there's that. So I doubt that will happen, but we'll see. I mean, it's on hold for right now, so we'll see what happens. All right. The next thing I want to talk about economically is jobs. In jobs. So there are 1,000,001 theories that people have to why Donald Trump got elected, right? Some people blame the media. I'm getting sick and tired of the media blame, by the way. Every time I turn around, people are blaming the media. The left blames the right media. The right blames the left media. People, this is 2017. There are 1,000,001 places you can go to get information. It
is not just all one place.
Well, one place. Stop blaming the media. If you're a conservative, you're going to watch Fox News. And if you're a liberal, you're going to parts of MSNBC, because MSNBC is becoming more conservative for some reason. But, I mean, stop blaming the media. But anyway, and other people blame the Electoral College and this and that.
Russia.
Russia got thrown in the mix. Donald Trump did something that the Democratic Party just didn't do a good job of. Donald Trump went to the Midwest and some of the most hollowed parts of the country, right, the old Rust Belts, and he promised those people jobs. He told them, I'm going to bring your jobs back. I'm going to go renegotiate these trade deals. I'm going to renegotiate all this different shit. I'm going to raise the tariffs. We're going to bring I'm a businessman, right? I got to know what I'm doing, right? So he said he's bringing these jobs back to America, and people believed him down to the T. Okay, he's bringing our jobs back, right? Now, don't get me wrong. He's been in there less than a year, so I'm not going to sit up here and say, well, he hasn't done that yet. You got to give some people time to do stuff, and bringing jobs back to America isn't some overnight deal. Like, I get that. But at the same time, as far as the manufacturing is concerned in this country, and as far as those types of jobs are concerned, do we really think they're actually going to come back? Is there really that hope there that we're going to be able to sustain an economy based off of the way things used to be? Because the way things used to be was, if you had all you had to have was like a high school education, right? And then you can go work down at the factory or the steel mill or something like that. You go in there, you turn a knob, you make the equivalent of about, I don't know, today's equivalent of about what, $45,000, $50,000 a year or something like that. And you'd be good to go, and you can put the kids through school, and mom didn't have to work, and blah 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 blah. And the CEO didn't make that much more than you did, right? Nowadays, it's not like that anymore. Going into a factory is not as simple as just turning a screw. Things are more complex now than they used to be. There's automation. Most factory jobs nowadays take more than just a high school education in order to operate. I mean, you have to have some sort of skill set along to go with it. A lot of the skill sets that a lot of Americans just don't have. There are, I don't know how many job openings in the United States, at least a couple million, that people can't fill because they don't have the skills necessary to fill them.
And there's this entire thing, what you were saying about now needing more than a high school education. I think it's really sort of almost dangerously arrogant that America's now going from you need a high school diploma to get something to now you need a bachelor's degree to get something to now you need a master's, and you don't have your doctorate? Well, sorry, you can't work here. I mean, we're going to be in so much school. There's going to be so many people enrolled in college, which means college now going to get more selective, and then that means that prices are going to go up, and it's this awful spiral of when is enough.
Absolutely. And it becomes a vicious cycle, because at the end of the day, if you need a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in order to get a decent job, that means you either have to be rich or you got to go into debt just to get one.
Or you got to be absolutely dirt poor and have good grades so they give you financial aid.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a bad catch-22. And then, not even to mention that, let's say, for instance, Donald Trump let's say, for instance, these jobs do come back, right? Because why did these jobs leave in the first place? Right? Let's get down to the core of it, the manufacturing jobs at least. Right? A lot of the blue collar jobs. A lot of the blue collar jobs. A lot of these jobs left the United States not because of anything else other than just corporate greed. I mean, let's face it, the CEOs
wanted cheaper labor.
They wanted cheaper labor. They didn't want to pay their employees a fair wage.
The minimum wage.
Yeah, they didn't want to do shit like that. They wanted to go somewhere.
They wanted to be able to pay 30 cents, 5 cents an hour to some child living in Indonesia or somewhere in South America.
Right. And then as a result, other American companies couldn't compete. So they had to go overseas too. And then, in the 80s and in the 70s, Richard Nixon and all them, they got rid of the trade deals. They lowered the tariffs. God bless them, but screw them at the same time. Bill Clinton signed NAFTA. And as a result, a lot of these jobs moved. And what's another reason why, right? Because of regulation. Big factories, big CEOs and factories, they don't like regulation.
They don't have to worry about every single person's individual health or paying for health care to help support families or to, make sure that something that they've invented isn't dangerous.
Exactly.
Hell no, where are the funds in that? No.
Yeah.
They wanna get away with,
murder,
some 10-year-old getting his hands stuck in a machine and being able to say, oh, that wasn't our fault. We aren't responsible for them because there isn't any regulations that protect them.
That's how you run a smart business now.
Exactly. Or environmental regulations.
That's a whole nother level.
Yeah, because if I want to go set up a factory in Mexico, if I'm big CEO man, right, I'm gonna go down to Mexico where I can go down, I can talk to whoever runs the town, and I can say, hey man, I want to blow out the side of that mountain over there. They're not gonna let me do that in America. Can I do it here? Hell yeah! Here's $10 million.
I think the human rights part is quite big or much bigger. Because I think that in the United States, even the United States isn't particularly good at our environmental impact. I mean, we're better than some countries, but we have no right to talk in terms of some of our impact. So I think that if we're gonna, blame about, it's more the human and not having to pay the human, or remember that each person working for you is a person and has a life.
Well, because here in the United States, workers have rights.
Yeah.
You can't, like, down in Mexico.
Or it's not even that they have rights, it's that they know they have rights. A lot of the times in different countries, they'll have rights, they just have no idea. They've never been told. They haven't had enough education so that they know that they're a human and they deserve certain things. And so it's really hard to see that sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think on the environmental side, while many people who are more liberal and for environmental regulation, we go, well, they haven't done enough. Then you look at sort of coal country, Virginia.
And that was going to be my next point.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Which is all about where are our jobs gone? Our jobs have gone because the environment has all these protection agencies have gone, you can no longer work at a coal mine because this coal mine can no longer exist.
Right.
And so all of a sudden we've got all of these people out of a job. And despite this constant thing that we say, we can teach them to work at renewable energy places and we will teach them how to use windmills and all that, that's not happening. So we can talk and talk and talk about, we'll give you new renewable energy jobs, but we're not putting our mouth where our money is.
It's also a lot of the times I think, especially for people in Los Angeles or New York or these bigger cities, to realize that some of these people's lives for generations have revolved around coal mining. And it's not even that it's just their lives have revolved. It's part of them. It's part of their identity. And we don't understand that we can't just take away it. And I'm all for renewable energy, but you also have to understand that these people, we have to, if we're going to do this, we have to pull it back slightly, but also push the other thing. So it's like kind of like this balancing game, so that we're not taking away right away so these people reject the renewable energy. We have to slowly introduce it and slowly take away coal so that these people have time to adjust and they understand what's going on and nothing's moving too fast, and so that everything is just kind of...
I think a lot of people want to do that, but moving away from something like coal is difficult in this country because there's such a fight to keep it going.
Yeah, and
it's a tug of war.
And I think a lot of the times is that these people don't understand is that we don't want to take away it like right away. Like, we're not trying to snatch it out of their hands. Granted, that'd probably be best for the environment, but that's not realistic because our economy relies on coal so heavily, or gas.
We were actually having this conversation the other day about single payer. Like, if we were to go straight into a single payer system, what happens to all those people who are employed by the private healthcare industry?
Our economy goes into shock.
Yeah, you know, like Kaiser Permanente. I know Kaiser Permanente is not a health insurance company. They just deal with HMOs. But, you know, like a company like that, that's like the 4th largest employer in the state of California. You know, what happens to all those people? And, you know, I know there's the old saying, well, you know, if you work at the VCR factory and the DVD player came out, you know, just got to find a new job. I mean, I get that and I understand that. But at the same time, we as, you know, what's the role of government? The role of government is to take care of its people and to help its people. Not to just leave people hanging, like libertarians think. But anyway, the point I was trying to make with that is...
No, we got sidetracked.
The point I was trying to make was that at what cost are we bringing back these jobs? If we get rid of regulations, for example, and let's say all these jobs come back because we deregulated everything and we slashed everybody's taxes. So yeah, a few more jobs come back to the United States. What cost are we paying for that? Does that mean that we have to have polluted rivers? Does that mean that we no longer have consumer protections? You know, what are we willing to trade for jobs that, first of all, aren't really going to pay that big of a wage more anyway? You know, manufacturing jobs aren't like what they used to be. And secondly, are we willing to bring back those jobs and roll back all of the progress that we made in the field or in the world of labor? And if not, you know, what are we going to do?
Back to the Industrial Revolution. Like, are we going to pull ourselves all the way to the back when children were working at 6 and 5?
I'm all for that, by the way. I'm like Mr. Burns with mine, but I don't think
oh my god. You and your Simpsons, I swear.
No, I wish I had a clip. This is one episode where Mr. Burns was like, we should have Child Labor Day or something like that.
Oh god. Yeah, but I am...
I love that. That's hilarious. I'm a huge Simpsons fan. But
Same.
But I mean, you know, what's gonna be the what is our answer to a sustainable economy in the future? According to Barack Obama, it was we got to get smart and go into the tech world, and people have to learn how to build apps and learn how to code and all this shit. I don't know about that, man. You know, there's only so many coding jobs and so many apps that you can put out there. I mean, we still need to manufacture goods. We still need raw materials. People still need phones and cameras and clothes and cars and shit like that. And that could be made here in the United States. But what's it going to take for us to bring that back? And is it ever going to come back? And if it doesn't, what are we going to do? That's a big question I would like you to answer. You, listener. All right, y'all. That is our show. Thank you so much. It's all on you now. It's all on you. It's all on you. Don't forget, I will be in Sacramento this weekend at the California State Democratic Convention. So if you're out there, come hit me up. Come check me out. Drop me a line. You know where to find me at MikeRileyNow.com. Let's link up. I want to say thank you to every single last one of you for listening. God bless Charlie. God bless Cam. God bless Brooke. God bless every single last one of you on Facebook Live, on Spreaker, iTunes, and everything. And to quote a great scholar, Barack Obama and Tom Hartman, democracy is not a spectator sport. You have to go out there. You have to get involved. It is important. That is how we end up with all of this crap that we have. Because people don't get involved.
That's how we have a show.
That's why we have a show. Exactly. All right, y'all. We will see you next week. God bless you. And all that cool stuff. All right. Cheers.
You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast. on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com.